Why is Box.com, a company that sits at the intersection of our connected society and cash-strapped consumer investing themes, making headlines? Perhaps it has something to do with it being bandied about as a takeout candidate. We'll have the 411 on Box.com and our conversation with the CEO coming up on this episode of Cocktail Investing. Welcome back, old listeners. Welcome, new listeners. This is the Cocktail Investing Podcast, where we try to distill all that everyday noise into clear investing signals. I'm Chris Versace, Tematica's Chief Investment Officer, and we've got an extra special episode of the podcast this week. That's right. If you've been paying attention to the headlines, maybe it's CNBC, maybe it's Fox Business, maybe it's another channel, you've probably seen a company known as Box.com bandied about in the headlines. Why? Well, it's an interesting company. It sits at the intersection of our connected society and cash-strapped consumer investing themes. Connected society because you order online and it ships to you, kind of like Amazon does, which is one of the companies on the Tematica Investing Select list. But it also has characteristics that make it rather similar to Costco wholesale, which is also on the Tematica Investing Select list. So from our perspective, when we see the intersection of these two investing themes, there are some powerful tailwinds. And that to us makes Box.com a pretty interesting company. Yes, it's private, but we also know that companies are trying to compete with Amazon's expanding footprint. And that has other ones like Walmart, Costco even, Target, and others, maybe even grocery stores like Kroger, scrambling to catch up and expand what they're doing online. And if we think about the intersection of Amazon and Costco, which is really what Boxed is, it means being able to order a variety of products, and have them shipped to you in relatively short order. But unlike the physical stores at Costco, the online world is maybe not entirely limitless, but you can keep a lot more stored in warehouses and shipped to people than you could possibly hope to keep on the shelves at a local Costco. So from our perspective, Box.com is I would argue, a poster child for thematic investing, or at least those two investing themes. Again, the intersection of connected society and cash-strapped consumer. And what do we know? We know that people continue to shift their spending online, in part because of the service, but also in part to, get better deals and stretch those pennies. As Lenore and I have been talking about, that's, by the way, Lenore Hawkins, Tematica's chief macro strategist. We've been talking all about the rising credit card debt, stagnant wage growth, and prospects for Fed rate hike increases, which to us say that, yes, more of that disposable income is going to go towards interest payments. Again, that means people will continue to look for ways to stretch their pennies. In other words, folks, the cash-strapped consumer is alive and well. If you want to say it another way, hey, we continue to see a middle class squeeze taking hold. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Boxed, and to do that, we're going to have our conversation with CEO Che Huang. And, I could go on and on about why I like Box.com. Again, I am a customer, but from our perspective, let's go straight to the horse's mouth. Here we go. Boxed CEO Che Huang, myself, and Lenore Hawkins.
Last week, I met the CEO of Box.com, Che Huang, when we were both on set with Stuart Varney on Fox Business. And now Box.com sells big bulk items online. It's kind of like the Amazon of Costco and Sam's Club world. And Che is such a fun guy that while we were on set, and I hadn't even gotten off, actually, Chris starts texting me going, you got to get him on the podcast. You got to get him on the podcast, because this was a man who knew how to give it right back to Varney. And that is something that not everybody can pull off.
That is 100% true.
So Che, you mentioned when we were on set with Varney that the last time you'd been on with him, the market had hit new highs. And here we are again. So I'm kind of feeling like you're a good luck charm for everybody.
I am. I feel like you just come rub my head or rub my belly, and there's and then we're gonna hit 22,000. So
what is it with the belly and you two?
But for the folks listening at home, I don't even have to say anything. This is just like I'm just happy to be here and just have a front seat view of the banter between Chris and Lenore. That itself is entertainment.
They pay us a lot for that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Che, tell us about Boxed. How long have you been in business?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of what you just said, Lenore. It's so when you park your car in a parking lot and there's a Walmart on one hand, there's a Sam's Club on the other. Which one do you self-select into? Well, Amazon is kind of like Walmart, and for us, we're like an online Sam's Club. We don't carry everything, but when we do carry it, it's generally the large size, and it's generally the large size that's not available to most other regular retailers. And so we started out of my garage in tropical New Jersey less than 4 years ago. So this will be our fourth full year in business that we're on. So a little over 3 years ago, we were still in my garage. And I'm sorry for the folks at home that can't see the actual video, but I'm sitting in one of our fulfillment centers, and it's definitely not my garage anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say that is some garage. Where's the car garage?
Yeah, there's no car garage.
You're just heading into your fourth full year.
Just our fourth full year. And,
because you said something on Varney about having over, I believe it was 100 million in sales. Yeah.
So, we're in that, range. So yeah, and as much as I would like to take credit for just being a genius at running this thing we've built, the reality is, I think over this, in the last 30 years of this country, Walmart got something right. And the retailers that truly won over the last 30 years got something right. And that was that value 100% was equal to price. And so that was just 1-to-1, right? But over the last 5 years, as the newer, younger generation is starting to have buying power when it comes to consumer packaged goods, that 1-to-1 formula just doesn't hold true anymore. So it's a function of value equal to price, convenience, how you access the price, and a little bit of who you're spending that money with. Right. And so the reason why I think retail is in flux right now is because no one has that new formula right. Right. Is it 99% price and just 1% about convenience and who the retailer is? Is it 50-50? Is it 10-90? No one knows. But the reality is that it all matters to a significant degree now. You can even look at the recent Delete Uber campaign. Right. It's trending. Why does that happen when Uber generally is the best price out there? They give the most aggressive discounts. They had the most liquidity in the system, aka the most convenience. The cars come really quickly, but it's that third piece. It's like who you're shopping with that's starting to matter with a lot of folks out there. So all these three pieces matter, but no one knows to what degree yet.
Now, Jay, let me just cut you off there, because that last piece that you mentioned, who you're shopping with, I think about the market share grab that Amazon's going through. I mean, it's huge. I don't, God forbid I go to the mall, but it means that I'm sitting there shopping on the couch, right? Or maybe shopping through my phone through the Amazon app. So they haven't really figured that piece, that social shopping aspect out, have they?
No, I don't think so. And so I think if you look at it through the lens of kind of the 3-part formula that I just said, maybe it is that who you're shopping with is 5%. And that if your price is really good and the convenience is really good, people will forgive that last 5%, as long as you don't truly flub it and as long as you truly don't proactively,
annoy and irritate.
Flaunt the fact that you don't care about the last 5%. So again, to your point, Chris, no one really knows, but everyone's kind of trying to figure it out. Especially even the large retailers. You look at an Amazon, you look at Walmart. They have so many different options now. Click and collect, direct to store, direct to home, Amazon Go, Amazon Fresh, Amazon Pantry. So, I think that signals that everyone is in this race to figure out what that formula is. And no one's got,
all I care is that it gets to me in a day or less.
So fair, and I think that will be, such a huge part of the future. And so I don't think you're alone in that, Chris.
No, we've got this instant gratification that if it's not 2-day shipping, I move on.
Yeah, no, you look at even just within the last 3 years that we've been in business, 3 years ago, 2-day shipping was revolutionary, right? Folks were like, oh my gosh, it comes here in 2 days. Now it's like table stakes. If you're starting an online retailer and you can't deliver it within that 1 to 2 day kind of band, people are like, it gets here pretty slowly, and now, in fact, people are pushing the envelope with same day delivery, 1 hour delivery. So I don't know. It's just an interesting time to be in technology and retail.
Well, let me ask you something on that. But first, Lenore, you had an interesting comparison with 2-day shipping. You were saying it's kind of what.
Yeah, it's like ATM machines. Yeah, there was a time, this is going way back, but you had, people used to go into a bank and then suddenly they had these ATM machines, and the ATM machine was like, whoa, this is a really high tech bank. They have an ATM machine. And then ATM machines became, well, of course, like, why would you not have an ATM machine? And a bank that didn't have an ATM machine just wasn't a legitimate bank. And then it was online banking, and you can do things online with your bank. And then it became, why would you ever physically go into a bank ever again? Right. And 2-day shipping seems like it's become that de facto standard that if you can't do it, you're just not that legit.
I totally agree. And, even down to the bank analogy, even like depositing, I still remember when some banks didn't allow you to deposit your check via your via your app. And I just remember I was like, wow, man, that's pretty old school. They don't allow you to do that. So that it's pretty crazy how it's evolved. It's such a short
amount. How quickly we get adjusted. There's something new, and it's just, oh, okay, well, now everybody has to do it.
As the resident old man here, do you remember passbook savings accounts?
Of course, that was my first stuff.
I just want to be sure. That's all. But let me get back to this notion of table stakes and 2-day shipping or less, because just your business. Have you seen that really transform? And how are you gonna, there are certain things that you sell that, people can get on Amazon, paper towels, toilet paper, blah, blah, blah. How are you competing with them? Or flip the question around, how is their push with Prime, forcing you to change your business?
Yeah. So luckily we, and I feel for a lot of these huge retailers that are trying to compete with Amazon now, because they have all these legacy systems and they're trying to kind of move this 118 or 150-year-old ship to try to compete with this upstart. I think luckily when we started Boxed, we were able to take a step back and see, okay, what is the lay of the land today and where do we think it's going in 5 to 10 years? And so let's start building for that 5 to 10 years. And that's what we did. So on day one, we looked at it and we said, okay, we need to plan out a fulfillment center network where generally, one, we don't charge membership fees, but yet you still get your packages in 2 days or less. And so how do we do that across the country? So then we strategically place them in locations where now 96% of our customers have their packages arrive in 2 days or less. So Chris, to your point, it's interesting because we had the benefit of seeing kind of some of the carnage that was going on with brick and mortar retailers, taking a step back and just said, okay, if we built a retailer from the ground up in 2013, when we first started, 2014, when the first package was out the door, how would we do so? And so we luckily, the way we planned it out is starting to pay off a bit, because even now, 2 days has become table stakes, as you said.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Lenore. I can feel you got a question.
Yeah. So I am fascinated with how, because this to me is just, it's not an obvious thing to do. How are you getting these big bulk items in 2 days or less to 96% of your customers at a cost that's reasonable? Like, how do you send huge packages of toilet paper and paper towels?
It's not only reasonable. I think Chris was alluding to it before a little bit. You take your typical basket. If you take SKU for SKU, you generally save money on Boxed quite a bit over Amazon, actually. And so the secret of how we do it is that, again, it's in that fulfillment center kind of planning, and it's a little bit of taking the club experience online. Here's what I mean by both. On one hand, we're close enough to the consumer that everything, and because we don't sell everything can be contained within a single fulfillment center for us. And so nothing's crisscrossing the country. You're not getting 20 boxes in order to fulfill your one order, right? And so there by itself, we're close to the consumer. Everything's going via ground. And because we're so close, it's like I said, 96% it's 2 days, and over 50% is actually overnight. We get there. So that's one. Two is that, I said, bringing that club experience into your home and onto an app and onto the website. And so what does that really mean, right? I'm sure all your listeners have been inside of a warehouse club store at some point in their life, right? Whether it's BJ's, Costco, or Sam's Club. And so what you generally find is that you go in there thinking you're going to make a beeline straight to the bounty paper towels and leave. But generally, you start walking the aisles, right?
No.
And
You go hunting for the free food samples.
Yeah, that too, right? But then basically, no one's ever in and out in like 10 minutes. I've never known anyone in and out. So you realize, you know what? I also forgot this, and we could stock up on this. And if I'm here, I'm going to grab this anyway.
And Lenore lingers at the wine section.
Which is actually, we just started selling wine in many states too. So
is that right?
So we've got
really?
We've got a great selection of wine as well.
Now I just got to cut you off there because this is very important. If you're selling wine, I need to know: is it 750 milliliter or those magnums of wine? Because those magnums of wine don't cut it.
No. Box.
And no box and no boxed, no bagged wine.
No box, no bagged wines. We actually got a Master Sommelier to come in and help us curate the selection. And so rest assured, everyone, my wine tastes were not reflected.
Where was that invitation?
Oh, that. So I didn't even get that. That was in the office, but the buyers got that solely, you know. But to the point of kind of walking through the aisles, what we find is that most consumers don't use the search bar. Like, you know, on Amazon, you search, you find it, you leave, right? Which is great. But think about that experience that the folks that park their cars and go to a Sam's Club want. They want to walk the aisles. They want to discover, and that's what we offer. And so at the end of the day, each basket for us is close to $100 and close to 10 items. And so when you think about that, you're like, okay, one box, one shipment, close to 10 items. Now we're talking, right? Because
that actually makes sense.
When you think about a business model online, your biggest cost is that variable cost line where you like, you know, where you ship the items, right? And if you ship one item, like most other folks do online, you got to get all your costs back in that, you know, all your shipping costs back with the margin of that one item. So now if we're amortizing that price or that shipping cost over 8 to 10 items per box, we can, you know, basically split that shipping cost over that many items.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Two questions for you. So you said that 96% of your customers can get 2-day shipping. But it kind of begs the question, and I'm not trying to get you here. I'm just trying to understand how many fulfillment centers do you have in, you know, spread across the U.S. Because I'm guessing it sounds like you have a lot of room to grow.
Absolutely. So with 4 fulfillment centers now, we cover 96% of our customers in 2 days or less. And so what you find with fulfillment centers is that to hit that last 2%, that last 1%. You got to really kind of go out there and you get diminishing rate of returns. So for us, it's been an incredible rise. Like I said, 3 years ago, the folks can't see it at home, but this was in my garage, and now with 4 all over the country,
So if you all saw this, it's pretty amazing. The scene behind him is an enormous fulfillment center.
So
So it's no garage.
No. So you have 4 fulfillment centers. Can you tell us where they are?
Yeah, so Northeast, we have one in Jersey. We're in the Southeast. We have one out in Vegas, and we just opened down in good old Texas. And so hopefully what that also shows is that our customers have become pretty dispersed all over the country, all walks of life. So you think about why someone would use Boxed, right? Well, we started with the thesis because I grew up in the burbs. Went to the Price Club back then. Chris, now I'm really dating myself. I was going to say, the reason how I can prove my chops instead of in terms of age is to say, like, one of my favorite movies ever was Goldie Hawn and Overboard. And so I still remember watching that as a kid. So I'm not that young.
That sounds like your first car probably had AM radio, no air conditioning, and a manual crank window.
Oh man, it had a tape cassette deck. Okay. So there we go, and so a lot of cars don't even have CD players anymore. But going back to Overboard totally
put you overboard.
I was like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about how great of a movie that was and how they don't.
Kurt Russell, right?
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. So, our audience now is pretty dispersed. So you look at me growing up in the burbs, going to the Price Club, then moving into Manhattan. I didn't have a car anymore. So we first started with the thesis that, okay, how many folks in urban areas, if you're single, 22 out of college, you might not want this huge thing of Charmin toilet paper. But if you're a 2-bedroom family with 2 or 3 kids, you might still have the space and the need, but not the car to get to a warehouse club. So that started, we started there as our audience. But what you found was that you also get a significant part of the American population that lives in towns, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people strong, that will never get a warehouse club because it's not dense enough. And so Costco, as ubiquitous as the brand is, there's only a few hundred in America, if you could believe it or not. And so those folks, they're just not supposed to ever access wholesale savings? Like those small business owners, they just have to go in and buy, if they want to have a party, do they just go into a Walmart and buy 40 boxes of granola bars? And so that has also become a really big subset of our user base. So that's why you see kind of some kind of Midwest and rural customers lighting up for us.
So you're really going where they can't go. You're leveraging the connected society that we live in to tap markets that they will probably never go to.
Exactly. That's totally right. It's like, when we look at kind of data that shows where folks have shopped, the irony is that everyone thinks we go head to head against Costco. They're like, and most articles out there just pin us as the Costco killer. The reality is when you pull where folks have shopped, there's very little overlap. Because the folks that are shopping box, either don't have the physical means, like we said about the folks in the inner city or folks out in the countryside, or they don't have the time or the patience. So, we're not going after the mothership and stealing share. It's really all these folks that just didn't have access to it before.
So if we look at Costco, though, if you're the Costco killer,
yeah,
one of the things that they've done, and I think it's been a master stroke, is really to increase their food and fresh food, organic product offering, because those are consumables, right? People are going to come back. Oh, geez, I ate all the salad. Oh, I ate all the steak. I need more avocados. Whatever it is, I got to go back. And to your point, when you get there, hey, what's this? You kind of look around, I always walk out spending a couple $100 more than I thought I was going to. But so how do you keep people coming back on a recurring basis, kind of like what Costco has done?
Yeah, so luckily for us, we do sell just about almost all consumables. So whether it's toilet paper, snacks, paper towels, those kind of essential items, we'll have some interesting discovery items in there as well that aren't consumables. But in general, that's what we sell. And now, ever since we started, we're just trying to kind of to lower that days to repeat. Basically, we started off with a long cycle. Now it's much shorter. And now as we add more and more consumables, and actually fresh in some locations on the East Coast, that repeat rate is starting to come down in a good way.
So, but you're not bringing perishable foods or anything like that, are you?
Oh, actually, in New Jersey, New York, Boston, and Atlanta, we currently are testing perishable deliveries. So you can get fresh foods from us. But again, staying true to our core, we're not going to have the 3-ounce blueberry pack. You're going to get the behemoth pack. You're going to get fistfuls.
5 pounds of blueberries.
Yeah, fistfuls. You can go double fisting blueberries all morning, with the yogurt.
That's like you want to see me eating a blueberry pie at a pie eating contest. I got them all over my face.
Well, hey, if we're going with 80s movie references, Stand By Me. That was one of the most memorable scenes of my childhood. Was the blueberry pie eating contest in Stand By Me. So, folks, if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. If you haven't seen it in a while, you should relive your childhood and watch that.
Oh my God! Next we'll be reminiscing through Stranger Things. I got a strange story. Okay, so
and Goonies.
And the Goonies.
And Gremlins. Don't get it wet. Don't get it wet.
No, we need a separate podcast just for that. I feel like it should be an 80s movie podcast, and it'll start.
I get the impression that Lenore, I get the impression he's going to be back quite a bit.
I think so.
I get that impression. But so just give us a sense. So you're saying that you're going into
moving into fresh
foods, perishables, but you've also got this other bulky stuff. So just so we can wrap our head around it, what's kind of if you could break down your sales into some categories? You don't have to be overly specific, just so we have a rough idea. Have at it.
Yeah, so I would say because fresh is still a test for us, it's still a small portion of our overall sales because it's only available in a few select locations right now. But if you look at our overall sales, you're probably getting the majority food now. And so when we first started, we barely carried any food, but now it's definitely skewing very heavily towards food. I would, you could say that was a self-fulfilling prophecy of us carrying more food and us being able to skew sales that way, but it really wasn't. We barely carried any foods early on, and but then the demand just started kind of skyrocketing. And I think again, over the last 5 years, folks are now having a very open mind to buy food online.
So let me ask you a question on that. So you started off, you just said not carrying a lot of food, but then you did. So how did was it your customers who were coming to you and saying, we want food, we want food?
Basically, but actually sometimes in a not so nice manner through the customer service email box. And so if they said that and they left the pitchforks at home, we'd be a lot happier. But folks are really passionate about Box. Folks that shop with us shop a lot, and they definitely let us have it when there's something on their mind that we're not doing. And so
but that's great though, because what you've done is you fostered a sense of community. And that keeps people involved or engaged. I mean, I'm sure you hear a lot of good things, and you hear some stuff that, hey, man, we got to keep our eye on that. You're right.
So the interesting thing, also, we didn't talk about it just yet, is that the B2B business is doing really well for us. And so you figure folks that need a 54 count of Frito-Lay chips, you can have a big family that might need that. Your kids going to school every day. But you could also have, that's the pack that we sell. You can also have a small to medium sized business where you're either having an event or that you just offer snacks to your employees. So we also get that as well.
Interesting. So I just want to get back to this notion. So you're willing to expand the offering if it seems like there's enough consumer demand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's tough because we have to balance consumer demand with the other side of things of not getting goaded into becoming the everything store. So
how do you? I mean, what's the line there that you kind of set for yourselves? Because it's a slippery slope.
It is. It definitely is. So I would say it depends who you ask in the company. So if you asked our distribution folks, they would say the line in the sand is what you can fit in this box behind me. And so he's like, we're not moving. All right. Like, it was such a pain to move this thing. We're not moving again. But I think the line in the sand is that, you look at your typical Costco, they have about 3,500 items when you walk into a store. Without perishables, we're at about 1,500 now. And we also don't sell TVs or electronics just yet. So we're starting to get there.
Hang on. Lenore, did you hear that? Just yet.
Yeah. So, we're if there's demand for it, we got to do it. But to your point, Chris, where's that line in the sand? And the line in the sand is always, how do we satisfy consumer demand without losing who we are? So if we just carried the same items as Best Buy and just had 400 TVs out here.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
who?
Best Buy. They're still around. They're still around, But, we would be losing our flavor as not the everything store, right? So what is the TV? What are the few select TVs that we can get that, it's hard to find elsewhere? We provide incredible value for it. And it's only available on Boxed, right? That would be something we would look into, but not just going to a distributor and saying, hey, give me all you got, and we'll figure it out,
Okay, so you're going more unique where you're not, I go into Costco and I see just a fairly generic and kind of everything.
Yeah.
So you're looking for more unique kind of products.
A little bit. So what's the beauty of Costco is that actually, even though they only carry 3,500 items, you walk in there and you feel like you're seeing everything. Yeah. You compare that to your typical Walmart, it has 100 to 200,000 items when you walk in the store. And so we also took, a little bit of that strategy. So if you think about us carrying 1,500 items, we're not going to have every flavor of popcorn, but we're going to have one type of pre-pop popcorn. But we sell so much of it because we don't have everything that we actually outpace Amazon. We've outpaced most everyone online in terms of that brand's popcorn sales. They give us a great price, then we pass it back along to the consumer.
So, do you sell any clothing or household goods like towels and stuff the way Costco does?
Yeah, we're starting to. So you'll see some towels on the site now. You'll see some clothing, but we're talking about socks. We have we have our own brand of cotton t-shirts, of combed cotton t-shirts. So they're really nice, and so But you won't, at least not right now. You're not going to see us carrying kind of Levi's jeans. We're not going to carry like a Ralph Lauren sweater. We might get there in the future, but again, 36 months, Lenore. I can't stress that enough. 36 months. It was just like, all right,
that's crazy,
boys and girls, we're going to do this.
Yeah,
and so
I'm in awe.
Well, I love it because as I step back and don the thematic perspective that we have at Thematica, it's fantastic because I'm hearing connected society, I'm hearing cash-strapped consumer, and if I peer. Jay, if you move your head a little bit, I can go, wow, look at all that stuff. And there's automation, which reeks of disruptive technology, which probably helps you, deliver on those margins. But before you answer that, I have a different question.
Sure.
So we're just talking about the ability to expand your product offering, and you're looking at new things. Has there been anything that's been, sorry if it's a sore point, but like a total flop where you were like, oh, this is going to kill, and it just doesn't happen?
Oh, you're kidding. So we first started, now we have 1,500 items. We started with 200, and 200, I almost picked all by myself. And I realized my calling in life is not being a merchant. And so it was not like day zero, we start to rise. It was just nuts, I just picked stuff that I thought I might want. So we had like protein powders in there, and we had like all sorts of stuff. And man, I was okay.
Jay, nobody likes lime green Jello.
Well, yeah, I actually love it. So,
Well, there you go.
But now on that front, we have a very experienced individual. So Heather Mayo, she used to run all of Sam's Club West, recently joined our company as our chief merchant. And so Heather has a much more steady hand in terms of picking the items and talking to the consumer and finding out what our selection really should be. But man, luckily there's not too many of the flops, and they happened early on when we didn't have huge inventory positions. As we say here in the fulfillment center, no dogs. Meaning that nothing can't move slowly because our business model doesn't work if it moves slowly.
Right. I mean, you've got to flip it fast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, if you look at, we walk into, again, just for visual reference, a Costco, and you have similar products. But if we think of things like products from Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, that sort of thing, how do you go in and negotiate with these guys? Because, compared to 3 years ago, at the time, you're nobody.
Yeah, oh my gosh. This is so apropos because I'm just fresh back from a conference when I saw a major manufacturer. It's a really big one, but I was invited to speak in front of some of their very senior kind of leadership across North America. And so I just could not help but think, man, how far have we come in 3 years, and how much flux this industry is in? Because 3 years ago, literally hat in hand to meet anyone there. I'll meet the intern, I'll meet anyone just to be able to extol the virtues of selling the stuff online. And now for me to be in front of the most senior kind of leaders in the company, just signals to us not only the rise of Boxed, but also the disruption that's going on in this industry.
No, Jay, you got to say it. It's the rise of the connected society and the cash-strapped consumer.
That's exactly right. So I'm going to trademark that if you guys haven't yet. No, I'm kidding.
Keep going.
Chris is getting threatening.
Okay.
Keep going.
So how is it that you see the industry evolving? Because it certainly is changing rapidly.
I think real consolidation in the brick and mortar world. I also see, just a real shakeout, real consolidation, and really the boundaries being drawn for the next quarter century over these next few years. And retailers, generally generate a lot of EBITDA. So it's not like folks that say even you look at Sears, right? Sears, by all accounts, is in real trouble. Most millennials don't even know it actually is still in business, but it just won't go away because they're still EBITDA positive, and it just kind of keeps going. But what I mean by these next 3 years is that the lines of the ring are drawn. Who's going to be in this Royal Rumble over the next quarter century? and you'll know who's a contender and who's not a contender over these next 3 years. And you're starting to see names that are household names that probably won't be a contender over these next 25 years. And so it's really scary and it's really crazy out there. So yeah, but interesting times for everyone, I would say.
So sticking with our movie theme here, Rocky 3.
I could have been a contender.
No, Rocky 3. It's Rocky 3. So what you're saying for brick and mortar retail is the answer that Clubber Lang, Mr. T, gave when he was interviewed. Mr. T, what's your prediction for the fight? Pain.
Clubber Lang. I'm watching. I'm going on YouTube right now, right after this podcast. I'm going to.
My prediction. Yeah, pain.
I wish this wasn't on a public broadcast because I would totally steal that from you, man. It's so awesome.
You know what? When we get off, when we're done taping, I have a couple things that I want to ask you about just off to the side. So you can feel free to do that. You can feel free to do that. So I noticed that we're running clocking over about 30 minutes. So just a couple other big things. Not to put words in your mouth, but you're saying that the rings have been drawn. Who's going to be a contender? We obviously think that you're going to be a contender because we think you've got something special here with what you figured out. But who else do you think? People are probably going to think Amazon, right? But but is there anybody that is probably less than obvious that you think is man, you got to watch these guys and gals?
For me, I think Aldi.
Who?
That's part Aldi, ALDI. They're a German hard discount retailer that recently is expanding in the U.S. And you look at Aldi, and their competitor in Europe is another company called Lidl, Lidl. They're both very well-run German retailers that solely focus on private label. And folks kind of wrote them off in Western Europe, saying that there's no way they're going to do well in the UK. But they're really giving Tesco a run for the money. And so here in the US, I feel like there's definitely going to be some waves made by them. So that's one kind of obvious one. Another non-obvious one would be the local supermarkets. Not local, but maybe regional. How about that? Like you talk to folks that shop at HEB, they love HEB. Some folks are really into Wegmans, and so I think so it's that emotional kind of aspect of it.
Wegmans is the bomb.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the last 5%, right, that we talked about. Well, maybe it's 10%, but that emotional connection that a regional retailer sometimes has with the local population, it's very hard to disintermediate. So I would say some of those retailers, will be decently well insulated in the medium term. Long term, I'm not sure, because if supermarkets truly go away, then there is no room for anyone. But at least in the medium term, I see some resilience in those brands.
Yeah, what you just said there, and tying together comments that you kind of alluded to at the mall, comments that Lenore and I have talked about the retail banking footprint out there. There's a lot of space that's going to come due.
Yeah.
That is, it's going to be, I think, extremely painful.
Oh yeah, the amount of excess retail space that's out there is profound. But it's an amazing opportunity for somebody to figure out what to do with all that space.
But Lenore, you know who that's really good for? A company who's growing that needs more fulfillment centers across the United States of America. Can you think of anybody?
Yeah, there's a lot of good real estate coming onto the market now. But that I feel like that's another 30-minute podcast. The kind of changing of the guard in terms of if malls start to close, and malls were in generally desirable locations when it comes to kind of populations, like just residential kind of neighborhoods. And then you had all these industrials going away, and you had these downtrodden areas on the outskirts of town. But now it's starting to flip a little bit, where the outskirts of town are where the new kind of jobs and fulfillment centers are, because all these fulfillment centers are coming back up there, and these malls are starting to go away. And so it's really interesting where I'm not a real estate expert, so I don't even know how that's going to evolve.
So I have to ask you, where in New Jersey are you?
So we're right in Union, New Jersey, about 5 minutes from Newark Airport.
Okay. So I teach graduate classes up at New Jersey City University, which is in
Okay.
It's right by the path stop is Exchange Place.
Okay, so we're not far at all. So if you came down to the intersection that we're in, we're like 5 minutes from Newark Airport. So super convenient.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is that whole area, just to your point about the rebuilding that's going on, back right around 9/11, that whole area was warehouses and everything else, and now it's some of the up and coming real estate as they, really rebuild that whole town of Jersey City right on the waterfront. I mean, it's something to see.
Yeah, like I said, different podcast, and you need a real. I'm, you talk about me not being able to pick 200 items. I can't pick 200 real estate locations. Believe me, that would be.
All right. So
I'm a developer.
So I'm going to take one last. I'm going to give you one last question, and then I'll turn the mic over to Lenore because, as usual, if I get going, I get going, and I don't stop. So as you look out, you talked that the next big time change to watch is from now to 2020, right?
Yep.
What's either for hopefully for you, I don't wish it for you guys, but for yourselves and for the industry, right? What are the biggest risks that you see?
In terms of just to society in general, or
to either retail or the way that you're seeing retail evolve, because the way you're seeing it evolve is going to impact your strategy, right?
I clear as day in my mind now that I understand the question. Autonomous cars, just autonomous delivery vehicles.
Couldn't that be a positive though for you?
Oh yeah, so I would say, at least for the broader industry, that would be really good for everyone that delivers to home, right? You look at where is a true competitive advantage of having a store. It's that, you have huge kind of fixed costs, but your variable costs are really low compared to the folks that have to ship it to your house, right? Mm-hmm. And so online retailers like us, Amazon, we have gigantic variable costs because, that's where the shipping costs kind of lie in the whole kind of P&L. And so when you think about that, and you think about an autonomous UPS truck just driving to your house, and those lowered costs being passed along to retailers, online retailers, then if our fixed costs are lower and our variable costs are super low as well, then just ostensibly everything you buy in your daily lives, no matter the margin profile of that item, whether it's a single roll of toilet paper, whether it's a huge big screen TV, will be cheaper to buy online than it will be in store. And when that day comes, then it becomes like an IQ test. Do I want to take 2 hours of my day to go buy it online, or do I just want to sit here, order it, and it comes whenever it comes, and me save money and time. So I think at that point in time, it will be a huge shock to the industry. So I've got my eye on that.
All right. So I lied. I got to follow up.
Okay. All right.
So recently UPS is beta-ing drones.
Yeah.
Right. And the visual image I have, to stick with your suburban, sprawl there, is UPS truck rolls into the cul-de-sac, out go the drones. And the cost, they said, I think this is what they said, is like 3 cents a mile. It's
insane.
It's ridiculous. So, I mean, you buy that? Because to me, it's interesting, and I think it's got to be, small packages, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're not for us, that'd be really interesting to see a 50-pounder drop on someone's.
You would need the Iron Man drone.
Yeah, exactly.
The Mr. T of drones.
The Chinook helicopter of drones would need to do
right.
I just thinking on the fly, I like that model better than just saying, we're going to drone deliver everything from a fulfillment center somewhere, because then you'd be operating an airport, right? Because the amount, even at our scale, the amount of packages that's come out of here, if we had a drone that needed to deliver every one of these packages, we didn't need a freaking airport, right? Like H facility. So
you'd also be faced with me standing there with a slingshot and a pile of rocks.
Exactly. So you think about a UPS truck, pulling into a general neighborhood and then kind of letting it go from there. I think there's something to it. Seems a lot more tenable than just having tens of thousands of drones populating the earth.
That's making sense. But having a a driverless, an autonomous vehicle, an autonomous UPS truck with then drones on top of it, and your costs are really going down.
Yeah, I could see that to extend the usability or extend the radius of how far a UPS truck can cover. I feel like, the UPS man or woman would still kind of deliver the package to some areas, but the ones that they don't need to drive to, I could see kind of like a hybrid of that. Because also drone deliveries, drones are really loud. Like, when there's a drone overhead, it's really loud. And if you could augment that by just 50 in your neighborhood at any given time, it's going to be really annoying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, maybe that's our next company, guys. So the Chris,
the quiet drone, the silent drone.
Yeah, the quiet drone, the stealth drone technology company. So there's something to it.
All right. Well, we have one last question for you. Okay. This is actually the single most important question.
About fuel costs and who are they working with?
All right. We got 2 more questions. Fine.
Sorry.
Go, Chris, go.
Sorry. I'm a former equity analyst. It just happens. I can't stop it. So the one thing that I always wonder about with you guys is, obviously your product has to get to the individual. So I have been thinking about UPS as kind of the missing link in the connected society, right? Because I can go online, I can shop, I can do whatever, but it still has to get to me, right? And your product still has to get to the individual. So, what are your thoughts on UPS? How do you manage the cost of shipping, right? Because I know you're doing bigger boxes and you're spreading it out, but every year UPS has an annual cost increase that they put in, and there's this whole thing with fuel prices. So could you just speak to that?
Yeah, so I think we're a little bit more focused on what we need out of a transportation partner because we're so focused as a business on what we do. For the folks back home, Chris did not roll his eyes. So, that's usually that's CEO speak for he has no idea what he's talking about. But here's what I mean by that. When you look at a carrier, and if you have a business, right? If you ship little things of Post-it notes with big chairs, with big TVs, and with also medium-sized monitors, it's really hard to get great value unless you have incredible scale out of the transportation partners, right? Because there's all these different levers. Do we charge you? Are you negotiating the residential surcharge? Are you negotiating the kind of countryside surcharge? Are you negotiating the big box? But for us, we know our packages are all relatively large. So there's only 2 or 3 levers that we actually care about. And so the other stuff is completely offset by our focus on just saying, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. We don't care about anything else. We don't care how much you charge us for an envelope that goes overnight, or we don't care how much our international package costs are or our international freight is. You know what? Because you could charge us full freight plus 10%, and we don't care. But we just need X, Y, and Z. So I think that's why we've been so focused on what we do, but also that's why we've been able to get away with kind of pretty palatable shipping costs to this day.
Cool. Now I understand we might have one last question.
Yeah, Lenore.
And the single most important question, because after all, this is
I know what this
the Cocktail Investing Podcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, favorite cocktail?
Oh gosh. So I'm a people at home will cringe, but I'm actually a Scotch blended whiskey fan. I like single malt as well, but I like there's a few blends out there that are pretty good, and single malts as well. But I have this really weird taste in alcohol. It's either high end whiskey, Scotch whiskey, or really low end everyday beer. So I
don't tell me. No, not Coors.
Are you telling me you're a PBR guy?
Oh, dude, PBR all day. PBR. I was just in Vegas and I was at this event and there was a bar and they stocked PBR cans just to be cool. No one ever orders that in Vegas. And I was like, 2 of the cans. And so they looked at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, bring them on over. Thank you for stocking them. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a vestige of my college past.
So you weren't worried of people thinking that he's not really the CEO of Box. The guy's drinking PBR.
Even better. So no one needs to come up to me. So I'm kidding. But yeah. So I still keep it real, man. And you'll find me drinking a PBR, or you'll find me in the middle seat on a red eye back home in economy.
All right, so just stop right there. As investors, right? As investors,
we love that.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it, because it means
this is a company that is going to do well. When you have a CEO who says red eye middle seat, that is a company that's got their eye on the right thing.
It's happened before where some of our and this will be the last thing that I have to say at least. And so we've definitely kind of had meetings where our partners who sell us either solutions, whether consultants or whatever else, I've definitely walked past them into economy, and it makes them feel really awkward. They're like, oh, where are you? I'm like, oh, I'm back in like 38C, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they're like, oh, this is free upgrade. I'm like, sure, just make sure you don't charge us for it, but but it's been so fun. It's I'm glad I did it. Next time, hopefully we won't do it sober. So there
it is. So Jay, we're hey, thank you so much for carving some time out today. I'm glad that we were able to have you on. It goes without saying that we're going to have you back, because there's like 3 or 4 more things we got to talk about.
Yep, absolutely. So let me know anytime.